The movie begins with a large, old cargo truck entering Colombia, and we watch as it crosses the border. After the police officer checks that everything is in order with the truck, he waves it through. A short while later, the cargo truck stops at a suspicious spot, and the driver jumps out and opens a wooden crate in the back. A guy named Kris climbs out of the crate. As he gets out, Kris is completely caught off guard when the driver points a gun at him and demands cash. Kris tells him he already took the money they agreed upon before he got in, but the driver informs him that was just for the ride, and now he wants money to let him live. Just then, Kris catches a second guy sneaking up from behind, and he is also armed. So he forcefully throws his bag at one of them and immediately starts fighting the other. He slashes the guy's shoulder with the knife he has, and then Kris punches him, knocking him onto the ground. After that, he grabs the second guy and gives him a brutal beating. He leaves them both lying on the asphalt, snatches the car keys, and drives the truck to another location. Elsewhere, we meet a seriously dangerous guy, and we find out his name is the Demon. We see him fixing his mechanical arm so he can go out. We return to Kris and observe him staking out a specific house until a car drives out of the driveway. In the car is the owner's daughter, and we find out that this is the home of a gang leader named Finn, who lives there with his daughter, Alice. Just then, Kris takes the truck and follows her. He watches Alice until she arrives at her school. Once Alice finishes her school day, she returns home. The moment she walks in, Finn asks her how her day was, and then they relax and laugh together. It's very clear that they are super close. That same night, we see the same guy with the missing hand at a cafe long after closing time. Then, the cafe owner walks up to him and tells him to leave because she's closing. But the guy grabs her arm and forces her to sit across from him. She is totally scared, especially after he finishes assembling the mechanical hand on his arm. He pulls a blade out of it and cuts a piece of cake with the knife, then asks her to open her mouth wide and eat it. The girl does as he says because she's so terrified, but she is saved when a police patrol car arrives. A female police officer steps out and goes inside to check on the cafe owner. The owner tells her that he was directly threatening her, so the police officer tells the guy to get lost. The cafe owner is shocked that she just lets him go. When he leaves, she asks the officer why she didn't handcuff him. The officer tells her that he didn't physically assault her, so she couldn't do anything to him. She then locks up the store with her and starts driving her home. But the moment they get into the car, the demon appears out of nowhere and kills the police officer. He then gently tells the girl to calm down before killing her too. How sick is that? The next day, we see two of Finn's men driving Alice to school. Kris approaches looking disheveled and starts cleaning the car window. He tries to get them to lower the window, but they don't budge, so he smashes the car's side mirror. One of them jumps out looking for trouble, but Kris knocks him down with a single move. The other guy tries to lock the car before Kris reaches him, but Kris grabs him by the neck and knocks him out too. When Alice sees all this chaos, she runs out of the car and into the street. Kris finishes off the two guys he was fighting and takes over the car to chase and catch her. He manages to cut her off with the car, and then he runs after her and grabs her. Her phone falls out of her hand before he forcefully shoves her into the car trunk. Afterward, Finn finds out about everything that happened and scolds the two guys he sent to drive her. He then grabs his cane and beats one of them until he collapses. He then tells his crew to kill the other one. After that, he calls his right-hand man, Joey, and tells him to contact all the groups they work with. He tells them to dismantle the entire country until they find his daughter, and whoever finds Alice will receive a large stock of cash. Alice is screaming at the top of her lungs in the car trunk at this point, so Kris drives her to a secluded spot in the forest. He opens the trunk to check on her when he notices that she has suddenly gone quiet. But the moment he opens it, Alice escapes into the woods. He chases her until she falls. He tries to talk to her and shows her a photo of himself with her mother and father. He tells her he used to be very close with her father in the past. He tells her that her mother asked him to take her away from Finn, but she doesn't believe him, and she asks him what his issue with her mother is. He tells her it's a long story and that she just needs to trust him, but she is still terrified of him, so Kris hands her his pistol and tells her that if he does anything dirty, she can blow his brains out with it. Alice grabs the pistol and fires a shot at him just to make sure he's serious, but the bullet misses. Alice gets into the car with him and points the pistol at his head to force him to drive her home. But he tells her it's a super long drive, and she doesn't need to point the gun at his head the whole time because she'll get tired, and besides, he knows she doesn't have the guts to shoot him anyway. But Alice informs him that she might shoot him whenever she pleases, and she's not afraid of him. So Kris says, "Just relax, you can't do anything." Alice shoots him, but she is surprised when she realizes the pistol is empty. Here we find out that he only gave her the pistol with one bullet, and Alice remains scared stiff of him the whole way. After a while, Kris realizes the car is running out of gas, so he stops at the nearest gas station and tells her to keep calm and not say a peep. But the moment he steps out of the car, Alice sees a group of men standing around and runs right to them, begging them to help her. Kris runs after her and tries to get her back into the car. She leaves them to fight and calls her father. One of the guys jumps on Kris, but Kris punches him and leaves him knocked out on the cement. After that, all the guys attack him one after another. He throws the guys around and punches them in the face. He doesn't want to kill anyone, so he only hits them until they pass out. He then runs to Alice and grabs her just as her father answers the phone. She tells him to hurry up and save her, but Finn doesn't get to hear anything more from her. Kris shoves her into the car, ties her hands, and tells her to behave. Alice yells in his face and says, "Who the hell are you to give me orders?" He tells her that he is her father. Alice is stunned by what he says, but she tells him that he's just a load of garbage. She then informs him that she is starving, and when she starves, she gets even angrier than she already is at him, and he needs to take her to get some food so she can figure out what's going on. So Kris drives them to the nearest restaurant. We realize the moment they get out that someone is following them. Then we switch to Finn, who is ordering all his men to search the area from which she called. Joey gets all the information and rushes to tell the demon. Here we realize that they had an old score to settle, and Joey is feeding the demon all of Finn's business to pay off that debt. We return to Kris and see them sitting down to eat. Kris tells Alice to devour her food quickly because they have to leave, but she tells him that if he forces her to leave before she finishes eating, she will scream at the top of her lungs and make a scene. Kris notices a chain around her neck. He tells her that he bought it for her mother, and as she grew up, she became the spitting image of her. Alice tells Kris that if he is telling the truth and he is her father, then where the hell has he been all these years? Kris tells her that he was locked away in the penal colony. Then she says, "You mean you're a criminal?" Kris says, "What, did Finn tell you he was a dentist or something?" He tells her that her mother never gave a damn about Finn. Alice gets teary-eyed and says she misses her so much and doesn't understand why she did what she did. Here we learn that her mother committed suicide, but Kris tells her that he's certain Finn was the one who murdered her. She gets angry at him because she loves Finn to death, but then an entire crew suddenly surrounds them. It turns out this is the guy who was following Kris, and he's a gang boss looking for the bounty. Kris lunges at him and starts attacking everyone in the place. Two of them grab Alice and leave with her. The gang boss chases after them, and Kris is in a massive brawl with the rest of the crew. He wrecks the entire place with them. When he gets out, he sees that they ran away with Alice and wrecked the car he was in. Kris then runs back into the restaurant and grabs one of the gang members. He asks him where they took Alice, but the guy won't talk, so Kris grabs a deep fryer and keeps hitting him until he knocks his teeth out. The guy finally spills the beans before Kris finishes him off. At this point, Alice reaches the crew's hideout with them. They hand her over to the gang boss, grab their payment, and leave. The gang boss calms her down and tells her that he is going to return her to Finn for a fat check. He allows her to talk to her father to confirm that she is with him. Alice calls him, somewhat unsure, and asks him if he had anything to do with her mother's death. He says, "No way, why would you ask that?" She tells him that the guy who kidnapped her said he was her father. Finn drops the phone and starts destroying everything in sight. The gang boss notices that the demon has just shown up at their hideout and has eliminated all his men. He thinks he's here to kidnap Alice, so he hides her. He grabs his gun to try and stop him, but the demon is killing every person in his way. He doesn't care if it's a man or a woman, and he destroys any weapon that comes his way. Alice sneaks out of her hiding spot and grabs a vase. The moment the gang boss walks in, she hits him over the head with it, and he's knocked unconscious. She is then shocked when she sees that the demon has killed everyone in the place. She grabs the gang boss's pistol and starts shooting at him, but he sees her and rushes towards her. But before he can reach her, Kris appears in his face and the two launch into a savage fight. Kris realizes that the demon is incredibly strong and much bigger than him, but we see that Kris's skills are impressive and he lands multiple hits. But the demon suddenly punches him in the face and tries to finish him off, but Alice appears just then and screams at him to stop. The demon walks towards her, and Kris yells at her to run. She takes off running until she hits a brick wall. She stands there, and the demon walks towards her to finish her off. But Kris runs after him and grabs him, and they both fall from the top of the building. Just then, we see the gang boss wake up and unleash his machine gun on both of them. Kris takes advantage of that moment and jumps through the glass to get out of the place. He waits for the demon to run out of bullets with the gang boss. He then walks over and kills him. He steps out to look for Kris and finish him off, but a car suddenly rams into him, sending him flying. It turns out Alice is driving the car. Kris grabs her and gets both of them out of there before the demon gets up. We then see the two of them walking through a flea market. He tells her to go get different clothes because everyone will recognize her, and everyone is looking for them. Alice changes her clothes and asks Kris to tell her everything. Kris tells her that her mother was his wife before Finn betrayed him, locked him up, and stole her. Finally, when she visited him in jail, he found out that he had also taken his daughter. But she was scared stiff of him, and to make sure Alice was safe, she asked him to take her away from Finn as soon as he got out of the penal colony. Kris then tells her that he, her mother, and Finn were once a team that robbed banks. But the day he found out his wife was pregnant, he decided that their next job would be their last, and they would all retire. And they actually pulled it off. But then Finn planted evidence to make it look like Kris stole the money, and he spent 15 years in prison for it. Finn kept the money, his wife, and his daughter. We find out that Kris never squealed, because if all three of them went to jail, there would be no one left to raise her. Alice listens to everything he says, but in the end, she is still not convinced and refuses to believe a single word. At this moment, we see the demon at his home, and we learn that he is still breathing. We see him stitching the wound on his head. After he leaves, he spots a guy on the road and tells him to hand over his car nicely. But the guy flips him off and jumps out of the car to show him who's boss. But he didn't know that was the dumbest move of his life, because the demon lunges at him, cuts off his ear, then punches him, and leaves him lying on the ground. He takes the car and drives off. We return to Alice and see her driving with Kris. A certain song plays and she starts singing along to it. Kris tells her that that's the song her mother played at their wedding. He then tells her that the chain she is wearing is made of diamonds, and he bought it for her mother. He tells her that diamonds are incredibly hard and can break anything. He bought it for her mother because she was also a warrior, and nothing could break her. That's why he wants to see her be strong like her mother. Alice is touched by what he says. Meanwhile, Finn is watching everything happening on the security cameras. When he sees the demon on the cameras, he realizes that he wants to kill his daughter. Right then, he knows he's in deep water. That same night, Kris and Alice go looking for a new car to escape. When they spot one, he manages to open it and they both get in. Alice notices that he drew a route that leads to the airport. She tells him that she doesn't want to leave her father, her school, and her entire life for him. She says even if Finn locked you up, he raised me well. Kris gets heated and tells her that Finn is the one who killed her mother, but she informs him that there's no evidence for what he's saying. Kris tells Alice that her mother used to visit him in jail, and in the same month she told him she was going to grab their daughter and run away from Finn, she died at the same time. And that is definitely not just a coincidence or a suicide as he claims. Kris calms her down and tells her that he is going to take her to live with her aunt. She gets disheartened because he is not thinking about making up for all the time she spent without him. But suddenly, the owner of the car appears. Kris gets out of the car to deal with the guy. Alice takes advantage of the situation, takes over the car, and drives off. Kris then sees another car coming and tries to flag it down, but he's shocked when he realizes the demon is in it and he sees him chasing after Alice's car. Alice gets out of the car next to a payphone and tries to call Finn, but suddenly the demon is right in her face. She is terrified and runs into the street. She keeps banging on people's doors to get someone to save her, but no one opens up unfortunately. She keeps running, then she squats down and hides. She tries to hit the demon with a metal pipe, but he rips it out of her hand. He pulls an apple out of his pocket and tells her to take a bite. Alice takes a bite, terrified, and then spits it right in his face and runs away. She hears Kris scream her name and runs towards him, but the demon appears just then and gets into a massive shootout with Kris. Alice is caught in the middle. The demon manages to get to her and threatens to murder her. He tells Kris to drop his weapon. Kris does everything he says so he won't mess with her. The demon grabs Alice and ties her to a car. He then returns and ties up Kris to finish him off. He keeps punching him, but Kris keeps getting up. The demon asks him who he is and keeps punching him, and Kris says nothing and curses him. Alice tells him that he is her father. The demon is shocked when he finds out that she is not Finn's daughter. He punches Kris in the face until he passes out again. The next day, Kris wakes up hanging by his neck, held up by a car tire. He sees Finn right in his face and is about to finish him off, but Kris tells him he needs him to get Alice back. But Finn says, "No, I don't need you," and pushes the tire, and Kris starts choking. But at the last second, Finn tells his men to cut him down. The moment he gets up, he punches Finn for killing his wife. So his men throw him to the ground and drive him in the car to locate Alice. The demon calls him just then and tells him the meeting place so he can get what he deserves and hand over his daughter. He then tells him to thank Joey for helping him big time. Finn realizes that Joey is the snake who has been snitching on him. The moment he hangs up, he shoots Joey in the back and kills him. Kris says, "Right on, you're always a rat." He then asks him, "So who the hell is the demon?" He tells him that he once hired him to do a job, but he went a little crazy on him, so he decided to kill him. After he was caught, he set up guards so he could kill him himself. But when he got there, he found all the guards dead and the demon had escaped after cutting off the hand that was handcuffed. Since then, he has been looking for him and finally found him. After that, the two arrive at the demon's place. But Finn leaves him in the car and tells him that the demon doesn't know he's here. He wants him to sneak up behind him without anyone seeing him, just like they used to do things. The moment they walk in, Kris leaves and crawls around to the back. Just then, Finn approaches the demon and finds out that he killed all the guys who came with him. He then sees him tying his daughter's hands to a conveyor belt. He tells him to save her and cut off her hands before she reaches the end of the belt. Finn rushes right then to see what's at the end of the belt. He sees a metal grinder at the end and tries to stop it and turn it off any way he can, but the machine chews up anything that touches it. He is terrified for his daughter and rushes back to her. At this moment, the demon sees Kris in the area and rushes after him to finish him off. A massive chase breaks out between the two, and they get into a vicious fight for the second time. Kris fights back against the demon and lands multiple blows to save his daughter. He asks him why he is trying to get revenge on her, as she is just a kid. He tells him that she is important to Finn. He tells him that Finn paid him to kill his wife and he enjoyed and tortured her for a while. So he decided to get revenge on Finn for what he did and lost his hand doing it. That's why he is going to take his daughter's hand or her life. At this point, Finn decides to do what the demon said and tries to cut off Alice's hand. But he can't go through with it the moment he hears her scream as the saw grazes her hand. He tries to look for another solution. At this point, Kris feels like he is screwed fighting the demon because he literally won't die. He tries to get away from him to reach Alice and save her, but he keeps chasing him and gets into another fight with him. Kris throws him away and rushes to his daughter. He also tries to stop the machine, but the demon runs after him and stabs him with the knife on his arm. He keeps sinking it into his stomach until he falls to the ground. He then rushes to Finn and tells him to confess to Alice everything he did, and he will tell him how to stop the belt. Finn tells him right then that he paid the demon to kill her mother because he was afraid she would take her away. Alice breaks down even more and is terrified of what is happening. The demon tells them at this moment that the control panel for the machine is downstairs. He tells them that it will take forever to get there. Alice breaks down at this point, but Kris reminds her of the diamond. She rips the necklace off her neck and throws it into the machine, and the machine actually gets jammed and finally stops. But the demon rushes to Alice and tries to kill her. But Kris gets up again and tries to stop him. Finn rushes to him suddenly, and the two fall from a great height. Alice is shocked when she sees that they are both dead. She rushes to Kris and sees him bleeding out and fading away. She breaks down and begs him not to leave her alone. She tells him she has no one else now. But Kris suddenly falls silent and she breaks into tears. After all this happened, we see Alice visiting a grave, but then we find out that it's her mother's grave. We see Kris right next to her, and he tells her that her mother would be very proud of her if she were alive. Alice hugs him for the first time and calls him Dad. We then learn that the demon's body next to Finn's disappeared into thin air. It seems he might actually be a demon and not just a nickname. Or perhaps we'll get a movie sequel. And the movie ends right there.